Hey everyone, it's actually Jeb Bush, and the offseason is in full swing. We've seen a lot of players move around because of free agency or some of these crazy trades that have happened. And I know that there are some additional trades that are still kind of in the works, like, with Dame and Harden. But now that the dust is settled and we kind of know what these teams' rosters will look like, and at least have an idea of what their depth chart will look like, I think now is a good time to dive into NBA SoRare and start to prepare for next season. Now, last season, when we looked at teams, one of our big focuses was looking at teams that were clearly sellers, teams that were obviously tanking and looking to trade players because they were trying to get a high draft pick. Last year, there were a pretty decent amount of sellers, and it was very obvious who they were because everyone wanted a high draft pick this year. So there were teams that basically all but came out and said, we are tanking before the season even started. However, this upcoming draft class is considered extremely lackluster. And as a result, it's not as clear cut who these teams who are sellers are. I think there's a lot of teams this year who are kind of more on the fence, if anything. So leading up to the season, we're going to start talking about a bunch of these teams, the current situation they're in, what we think they're going to do, and most importantly, highlight the players that we think might have a lot of value once the SoRare season starts. Like we said last year, we want to identify these players and purchase them at a low price. So when they're given the opportunity to put up a high SoRare score and they're considered a very coveted player by a lot of the community, you're in the position where you can either sell that player for a profit or go ahead and throw them into an optimal lineup yourself. Now, before we start diving into teams and individual players, I want to preface this video with the fact that we're kind of in a unique situation with SoRare right now. There are a lot of people, like myself included, who are not logging on to SoRare every day and checking prices and buying and making listings. And because SoRare listings expire after a certain amount of time, some of these prices might be a bit inflated. Additionally, some of these players I'm mentioning are free agent signings to a new team or have been traded to a new team. And that news can cause a bit of a spike, which we'll see as we look at a couple of these players. And on top of all that, we know there is more supply coming for these players when the season starts. So my non-financial advice would be to make note of the players that you're interested in, maybe set some alerts up on SoRare data. So if someone lists a price well below the floor, you can capitalize on that. But just in general, to really slow roll picking up anyone, because one, there's still a couple pieces moving around. Like we said, Dame and Harden still aren't signed. Not that they'll affect anyone we're really talking about today, I don't think, but things can happen. Multiple team trades can happen. The NBA is crazy. And so I just think the best move is to take your time because there's truly no rush between now and the start of next season. Now, the team that we're going to talk about today is the team that I think has identified themselves as the biggest and most obvious seller going into the season, and that is the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards recently traded their two highest usage players in Kristaps Porzingis and Bradley Beal in exchange for, draft assets and younger players. After countless years of being in the NBA equivalent of purgatory, the Wizards are finally committing to a rebuild. And what comes with this rebuild is what I think is some great opportunities for the upcoming NBA SoRare season. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Washington Wizards. All right, so we're back on SoRare data, taking a look at the Washington Wizards. And I really quickly just want to point out something I think that's kind of nice. SoRare data keeps these rosters current. So if we scroll down, we'll see Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole and Landry Shamet and anyone that was traded to the Wizards will be on this page, which just makes it really nice and really easy to track the teams that you're interested in. So we're going to take a look at 4 different players on the Wizards today, and we're going to start with Tyus Jones. Now, Tyus Jones is a player that I absolutely loved last year for NBA SoRare, and this year I think he has even more value. As we can see, I've expanded Tyus Jones' history to kind of show since the beginning of last season all the way up to present day. And we can actually see that Tyus Jones has held his value like relatively good. We can see here someone got an absolute steal here at $4, but mostly even the floor during this offseason has been around $10. And I think part of it is because a lot of NBA fans knew Ja Morant was going to get some sort of punishment and some sort of suspension. So Tyus, if he stayed with the Grizzlies, would be starting for a good chunk of the beginning of the season, which creates a lot of value. And then, once he's traded, we know Tyus Jones is finally going to get a chance to actually be a starting point guard on a team. And this team has, some like real shooting capability with Kuzma and Poole. They have a guy that you can throw lobs to with Gafford. So Tyus Jones is going to have a lot of opportunities here to create plays, rack up some assists. So I think Tyus Jones is a really solid pick. This Wizards team in general, whether they're very good or very bad, it should all go through Tyus Jones. He's basically kind of the newer version of Chris Paul, just in the sense that, he's a facilitator who doesn't make mistakes, who makes great basketball decisions, doesn't turn the ball over a lot, puts up solid scoring points. And if we take a look at his previous scores, we can see, he had some pretty high SoRare scoring games here where he was dropping, 50s and even a 68 here. So right now his cap is at 20, which is, incredible. I feel like if you have a Tyus Jones for that week 1 on SoRare, he's going to be pretty high on the ladder of priority of fitting in your lineup. So I think Tyus Jones will have plenty of room to flourish, plenty of room to take that next step, hopefully, and become an even better player. If I didn't have one already, as you can see, I do have 2 right now. I would make sure I have at least 1 Tyus Jones before the season starts. Now, like I said, I wouldn't rush out and buy one for $17 right now. I would just kind of, watch the marketplace, maybe set up some alerts on SoRare data, see if you can snag one for closer to 10. Because that's kind of what we were seeing down here. There are definitely people getting them for $10, maybe before he was officially traded. I don't know the exact date on that, so you can go ahead and dive in here and take a look. But I think there's an opportunity where you can get them for $10, and that just sets you up to be in such a great spot at the beginning of the season, whether you're building lineups or, hopefully selling these beginning performances that Tyus Jones puts up. Yeah, Tyus Jones is one of the guys at the top of my list. I just as an NBA fan, I'm really excited to see him play on this Wizards team. I really hope he does well. All right, and now we'll take a look at the second piece of the Wizards' new backcourt, and that is Jordan Poole. First of all, a cap of 19, which, just like Tyus Jones, that's pretty great leading into the beginning of the season, at least, because this should, I would imagine, be a bit of an inefficiency, considering Poole is going to have the greenest of lights, and we'll probably be putting up 25, 30 shots a game with Tyus Jones just feeding him beautiful passes. The real question is, will Jordan Poole, be able to return closer to form now that he is not on the same team as Draymond Green? I would think so. The Wizards, I think, made a pretty slick move buying low on Poole and actually getting paid basically to take him with draft compensation. Yeah, I think it was a great move by the Wizards. And, if Jordan Poole is going to have a comeback, this is the situation that you want him in. So as we can see, we're looking at the chart here. This obviously is when he got traded. Pretty blatantly obvious. He went from $10, once again, kind of sitting at that Tyus Jones level, all the way up to 30. And now we're at about 20 to $25. So once again, I think with Jordan Poole, it's a little different because there's kind of a little bit of a higher ceiling because, like I said, everyone knows he's going to have this crazy green light. He can shoot the lights out of the building, as he's shown in previous seasons. And there's not going to be a lot of pressure on him like when he was with the Warriors to fit into a system and make sure you're constantly playing second fiddle to other people. Like, for better or for worse, Jordan Poole is going to get to be Jordan Poole. I currently don't own a Jordan Poole, and I would not buy one at 20 or above. That just seems like very expensive for a guy who there's still questions. Like I said, I think he'll make a pretty strong comeback, but we don't know. he might not ever be the same after taking that punch. So this is one of those players I'm for sure slow rolling. I would love to grab one at around 12 to 15. 12 would be ideal. I don't think he gets all the way back to this $10 line, but 12 seems pretty reasonable. 12 to 14, 15. I would love to grab one there, probably throw in an offer or two and just see if someone sells. But yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Poole is such an obvious play. If we take a look at his scores, we can see, I would assume this stretch right here where he's dropping a lot of high 40s and 50s is when Steph was injured and he kind of took over and kind of kept that team going. He's going to have this ceiling potential every game now, except he doesn't have to share with all these shooters besides Kuzma. So yeah, I think Jordan Poole really has a crazy high ceiling. Like I said, this is not some like genius play. Like this is a pretty obvious move. I actually think Tyus Jones is kind of the more subtle and sneaky play that people aren't realizing as much, at least, and might have gotten lost in the whole, Chris Paul, Jordan Poole trades that were going on. Poole is definitely someone I would say it would be probably great to have even multiple of him if you're trying to sell some spikes, because I think he has a lot of potential to really put up some crazy SoRare scores. And with that original cap of 19 going into next season, I mean that's going to be that gives you such a high potential ceiling for a lineup. So yeah, I mean I would just kind of watch Poole's price and hope he dips and make sure you're ready to capitalize on that when it happens. So the next guy I want to take a look at on the Wizards is Kyle Kuzma. He just signed a very large contract with the Washington Wizards, and now with no Beal and no Kristaps, he probably is the number one, or like maybe he's like the 1A and Poole's the 1B here. But he's going to have a lot more opportunity to put up some serious points. And he's slightly cheaper right now than Tyus and Poole, which is kind of crazy considering the situation. Now, obviously, his cap is a little higher. Maybe that's why he's slightly lower than Tyus and a whole $10 lower than Poole. But I am kind of surprised that he wouldn't be right at that $20 mark around with them, because I really think Kuzma has a lot of potential to be a really solid pick for this entire next season. And he's almost what I would consider a safer pick than Poole, with maybe, a slightly lower ceiling potentially. It's a little hard to compare Poole and Kuzma, but Kuzma's kind of proven that he can do it on his own. Poole has really never been the guy or like the number two. Even if Poole is the number two guy on the court, he's not the number two guy like on the bench. This will be Poole's like really big first step into being one of the head guys on a team. Kuzma's kind of already done it with the Wizards, and he's shown that he can create his own shot and can be a pretty incredible offensive threat. So yeah, I mean, I think at this price, like I said, if we're comparing him to just Tyus and Poole without really looking at other big players and seeing what their prices are, I think this is a pretty solid deal right now. And we can see that some people kind of snagged him at around 10. I would imagine you could throw in an offer and get him as low as 8, like some of these people are here. Granted, it was before he signed and before we knew who would be on his team. But between now and the offseason, I bet you could definitely get a Kuzma below the $10 mark, which I think is an incredible buy right there. I currently don't own any Kuzma, but he's on my radar. As you know, I really like to target some of these teams that are sellers, because I just think, when guys have the green light and they're not trying to win games, they're just trying to put up empty stats. You're going to get some pretty crazy SoRare scores. And SoRare doesn't care if they win or lose the game or if the team's any good. All that matters is that individual player's performance. One final thing that I think is worth mentioning with Kyle Kuzma. So usually when I make these videos, I kind of talk in terms of the limited cards, because those are the most I own. Like I own some rares, I've built some rare lineups, but my focus in terms of buying and selling and building like super, like the best lineups with the most options is limited for sure. But Kyle Kuzma's rare is at 63, and Jordan Poole's right now is at 160. Now, you'll probably want to take a look at the price graph history and, do a bit of your own research before pulling the trigger. But that price discrepancy at face value seems like either Poole is way overpriced, which that's what I'd kind of assume, or that Kuzma might be way underpriced. That's kind of crazy. And Tyus Jones is sitting at like 70 for his rare. So you could buy a Jordan Poole rare, or for less than that, you could buy a Tyus and a Kuzma rare, which just seems, like I said, definitely there's some market inefficiency there. And if you're really into the rares, I think taking a look at that and maybe monitoring those guys might prove to be a giant W, especially at the beginning of the season with, Tyus's super low cap, or Kuzma taking a big leap as like the de facto guy and leader of the Wizards team. So the last person I want to take a look at here is Daniel Gafford. I think he's a very intriguing pick for this upcoming season for a couple reasons. One, the Wizards got rid of Porzingis. Now Gafford will be the starting center going into the season unless something changes. And I really like Gafford a lot. I think he's a very good player who has a lot of potential. He's very young still. He's only 24. And he's shown signs of just like explosive athleticism. He can get tons of blocks in a game. And now with the Wizards bringing on a guy that has incredible passing ability and basketball IQ like Tyus Jones, opens up the possibility for someone like Daniel Gafford, who, might not have the deepest bag on offense, to be able to simply catch lobs and score SoRare points that way. Because he's already going to get you rebounds. He could drop 4 to 7 blocks in a game. Like, he has that capability. And now you might just be adding him getting all these easy points off of lobs and off of, a double team going to Kuz or a double team going to Poole, and Tyus Jones being able to get the ball from them, recognize that Gafford's open or he's cutting, and get the ball to him to score an easy basket. I really like Daniel Gafford for SoRare this upcoming year. He has a pretty decent cap for the beginning of the season. He's only, $5, $6. And if you throw in an offer, I'm sure you can get him for, someone here got him for $3 at the low. But, we're seeing $4 here, $4 there, just under $4. So you could definitely, once again, if you're patient, you kind of watch the market and strike when someone undercuts maybe a little too aggressively. I think there's a world where you can get a Daniel Gafford or two for $3. And I feel like that's a great entry point into having some Gafford here. I think there are definitely going to be some high scoring games from him this season in terms of SoRare. Let's go ahead and take a look here at his this last season. You can see a lot of high 30s, not bad at all. And then even a couple higher games here, very few. We're seeing a 42, 53. And I bet if we look at these, the number of blocks will be a big reason why. Let's see. Only 2 blocks here for Gafford, 25 points and 10 boards. That's not nothing. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at his 53 game here. Yeah, there we go. Like a 5-block game, 21 points, 12 rebounds. I just think there are not a lot of people who know that much about Gafford or are very aware of his skill set and athletic explosiveness. And I just think, once again, similar to what we said with Tyus and Poole, I think he's going to finally just be in a great position to kind of either take that next step or see where his ceiling is. And I think we see some high 30, some high 40-point SoRare scores, at least semi-consistently. And, like I said, if you can snag him for $3, I think that's such a good play and could pay off massive dividends, just given the fact that the Wizards aren't trying to win. They're all like, this is the season they're trying to see what Gafford is, what Denny is. Kind of allow some of these other players to really get the shine now that Kristaps and Beal, 2 super high usage guys, aren't there anymore. So yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and end the video there. Like I said, the Wizards are one of the few teams going into the season that we know are outright sellers. And I think that puts them in a very unique position for NBA SoRare. I mean, like we saw last year, I think having players that are on teams that are sellers is just a solid opportunity to really find value where people aren't necessarily looking yet. And unlike last year, where we were stacking the Zach Collins and the Jakob Poeltls because one of them would get traded and the other would get a massive bump in usage. The trades already happened. So we kind of know who's about to get those usage bumps going into the season. And since it didn't happen during the season, we don't see this massive spike where people are buying these players to squeeze them into a lineup immediately, which once again, I think just gives you a great opportunity, especially, like I said, with a Tyus Jones with a 20 cap and a Poole with a 19 cap. I mean, yeah, I think both those guys at the beginning of the season are going to be almost automatic must plays. So yeah, thanks for checking out this video. I think I'll be making a bunch more of these as we move towards the start of the season. You know, now that the trades and free agency have kind of died down and the dust is settled and we know what players are going to be on what teams and we kind of have an idea of the role they might fit into. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe so you can get more of these videos where we either take a look at an individual team or maybe a couple teams that fit into a group, depending on how many players we want to talk about and highlight. If you made it to the end of this video and you feel like it provided you with some value, please feel free to leave a like and even comment below. It really goes a long way and helps out my channel a lot. So it is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next video. Please clap.